How can I help my child to read if I'm not a confident reader myself? A lot of children struggle with reading, especially when they're required to read out loud. I can remember sitting as a child in the classroom as the teacher worked their way around the class, getting each child to read out the next part of the book. Instead of listening to what was being read, I'd be sat, lost in my own world. My logic was that if I knew what I was going to read, I could perhaps practice it now before they reached me, and I wouldn't sound such a fool when I opened my mouth. I loved reading and often, as a younger child, spent many hours reading to my dolls and teddies. Please don't judge. But when it came to reading out loud with anyone listening, it would all just go to pot. So there I would be, carefully analysing what part I was going to be reading and reading it over and over in my head. With any luck, the bell would go before the teacher ever got to me and I would be off the hook. And an internal monologue would run inside my head. Good luck, they're getting closer. Good luck. You've practiced this, you'll be fine. Good luck. Dawn, if you could read the next page, please. Fear would grab me, and any skill I ever owned at reading would run for the closest window or door, and I'd be left floundering, bright red cheeks and a growing threat of crying. When parents get in touch about supporting their children, reading is often an issue that raises its head. In this article, we're going to look at how children learn, some possible reasons why some children struggle, and some of the games that I often use to support children with reading, including the Dotty board game, which has been one of my favourites and has always proven to be a big hit. So, how do we learn? Learning is unique to each and every one of us. Here are some principles that we can use to support any child's education that will prove beneficial. If we give our child one thing to do to help them learn, we help them to create a memory. For a younger child, this might be flashcards to help them recognize basic words, which can then be built upon to help them to read. For an older student, we may give them a worksheet to help them learn non-linear simultaneous equations. In doing so, we help them to create a memory in their brain where they can go to recall that piece of information. I've used those two examples to show how this is relevant to all students. Then when we play the flashcards again or give them another worksheet, in doing so, we're helping them to reinforce that memory to make it stronger. However, when we're in the situation when we aren't thinking logically or our natural way of thinking isn't the linear route that is expected to be the norm, or we're sat in an exam or the teacher just takes it upon themselves to single you out to be the person to answer their question, it's unlikely that our brain will hurry straight to that specific piece of information that we need. Instead, it starts darting around inside our head like a ping pong ball, looking for that relevant nugget that will save the day. It travels all around the houses, the most scenic route it possibly can find, and then still fails to locate that tidbit that would have been so appreciated in that moment of time. Yet, if we give them a second activity to help them learn, it will support them in creating a second place in their brain where they can go to find the information that they need. So instead of using the flashcards, we might write the words on Jenga bricks so that as you take one from the tower, you must read it before placing the brick onto the top for the other person to have a go. Or create a pairs game where you match the words to a picture or a word to a word. You might even play bingo, draw images of the words and write the word next to it, make the words out of magnetic or Scrabble letters, or write them in the sandpit or with water on the side of a building. For the student learning simultaneous equations, you might ask them to create a poster using large, bright colours explaining to their peers how to solve these problems, or you might create a board game where you need to answer the questions as you go. Code breakers offer another good alternative. The goal is to make the activities as interactive as possible. Use colours, ideally a minimum of 5, as this helps to open different neural pathways. This approach also aims to make learning enjoyable. If the child is relaxed, they're more likely to take on the information rather than focusing on the desire not to be doing it. Furthermore, if they're enjoying themselves, they'll be more likely to want to participate. And with participation comes practice, with practice comes ability, and with ability comes confidence. And it all spirals into this positive spiral of success. So give them all the help that they need to help them to succeed. I often use the analogy of when a baby first starts to learn to walk, where they're kind of like holding both their hands and we're there with them every single step of the way, and we praise every step and celebrate it out loud with pure and genuine pride. Then slowly they gain the confidence and they let go of one of our hands, and we're in awe of what they're doing, but we remain closely by their side, holding that other hand just in case they need us. Then one day they let go altogether and they no longer need us, and they have the confidence and the ability to walk, to run without us. And from that moment, they never look back. And academic learning is no different. We just need to provide that safety net whilst it's needed. So, what triggered my interest was when my oldest daughter approached 7 or 8 years old, I thought she might be mildly dyslexic. I'd been on a course at a local college focusing on supporting reading and spelling difficulties. And as part of that course, we had to do a case study on someone, so I chose Clara. At the end of the course, the tutor pulled me to a side and suggested I had a word with her teacher. So I plucked up the courage and went in. The response I got was that dyslexia is just an excuse for laziness, so there probably wasn't anything to worry about. I didn't have the confidence back then to fight my corner, so I thought if I could learn everything I could about different learning styles, what I learned would hopefully complement the degree that I was doing at the time, but I could also use it to support her. Not that she ever really wanted my help. And that was over 20 years ago now, and I still find it fascinating. So, why do some children struggle to read? And there's a whole mix of reasons for this. And it's not normally because they're lazy or just not trying hard enough. That's a myth that we need to leave behind. Just like walking, talking, or riding a bike, reading is a skill that takes time, and every child will find their own way in their own time. Some children may not have had a lot of books or stories around them in those early years, so have had fewer chances to soak up language and build a love of books. Others might struggle to hear sounds clearly or mix up letters or sounds when they're trying to blend them together. Some might even have vision problems that make the words on the page seem to blur or dance around them. And then there's confidence. If a child has had a tricky start with reading, or they've been laughed at or corrected too harshly, they might just shut down and not want to try at all. But often the challenges go deeper than that, especially for children who are neurodiverse. Their brains process the world differently, which can make the usual way of reading feel frustrating and confusing. So, dyslexia can make it harder to link letters with sounds, break down words, or remember spellings, even when a child is bright and creative in so many other ways. ADHD might mean a child finds it hard to sit still or stay focused long enough to follow a story, especially if it's not grabbing their attention. They might skip lines or lose their place mid sentence. Autistic children might be great at reading out loud, but struggle with understanding what the story really means, especially when it involves emotions, idioms, or social situations which they don't feel are clear or logical. Dyspraxia can affect things like eye tracking and coordination, which might not think are linked to reading, but actually they're really important when it comes to moving smoothly across the page or remembering the ordering of words. And auditory processing difficulties means some children can't easily tell the difference between similar sounds such as b and d or cat and cap. This can make phonics a real minefield. And for children with working memory challenges, holding on to a full sentence while trying to decode tricky words can be exhausting. It's like trying to juggle too many different things at once. None of these differences mean a child can't learn to read. It just means that they need different tools, more time, and a whole lot more patience and encouragement. The most important thing to remember is this: struggling to read is not a reflection on the child's intelligence or potential. It's just a sign that we need to approach things differently. And that's okay. There's no right way to learn. And with the right support, every child can build the skills they need to enjoy reading in their own way. What can we do as parents to help our children with reading? Firstly, create a positive learning environment. First and foremost, it's essential to foster a positive and supportive learning environment at home. Many children often feel self conscious about their reading abilities, and this can lead to anxiety or a reluctance to engage with books. As a parent, you can ease this pressure by emphasizing progress over perfection and celebrating every step forward, no matter how small it seems. Avoid comparisons with other children or siblings. Each child learns at their own pace, and that doesn't define your child's potential. Encourage their efforts and remind them that it's okay to struggle sometimes. What matters most is persistence and the willingness to keep trying. Practical strategies for supporting reading at home. Use multisensory learning techniques. One of the most effective ways to support children in reading is using multisensory learning methods. Some children often struggle with traditional reading instructions that rely heavily on visual or auditory input alone. Multisensory techniques engage multiple senses such as sight, sound, touch, movement, making it easier for your child to process and retain the information. For example, you can use letter tiles or magnetic letters to help your child build words physically, which allows them to see and feel the letters as they construct the words. You could also encourage them to trace the letters in sand or with their finger, pairing the activity with sounds or spoken words. Activities such as these can make learning more enjoyable and less abstract for your child. Use assistive technology. There are so many tools and technologies that can support your child's reading these days. Audiobooks are particularly helpful as they allow children to follow along with a narrator while seeing the text. And this combination can improve word recognition and comprehension. Many apps and tools are available to help with reading, including text to speech programs and apps that highlight words as they are read aloud. Use coloured overlays or dyslexia friendly fonts can make reading less visually overwhelming. Focus on phonics and word patterns. Phonics based instruction often helps children by teaching them the relationships between letters and sounds. Breaking words into smaller parts like syllables, phonemes, morphemes can help your child decode words more effectively. Practice word patterns and rhymes with your child, focusing on sounds within words. Repetition is key, but it's important to present practice in a way that doesn't feel repetitive or tedious. You might play games that involve matching sounds to letters or make up songs or chants to help your child remember common phonic rules. Read together often. Reading with your child is one of the best ways to build their confidence and fluency. Choose books that interest them, even if they're slightly below their usual reading level. When a child is engaged in the story, they're more likely to persevere through the challenges. Make reading a regular part of your routine, but keep it as relaxed and enjoyable as possible. This is not about testing or evaluating their skills. Being a less confident reader yourself may also be beneficial as it shows your child that actually it's okay not to be great at it. The person they love most, admire most in the world doesn't find it easy either. You can learn, practice, grow together. You're in it together for support, guidance, and help. And you can take turns reading, with you reading aloud the more difficult sections and then letting your child read the parts they feel comfortable with. This takes the pressure off and ensures that they can still experience the joy of storytelling. Even now in my 50s, if I'm working with someone and I have to read out loud, I still apologize and tell them that I will probably fall all over my words and sound like a completely incompetent buffoon. So please do bear with me and I will do my best. But use positive reinforcement. Always remember that positive reinforcement is a powerful motivator. Praise your child's efforts, not just the results. If your child manages to read a particularly tricky word or remembers a rule they've struggled with, celebrate it. This can help build their self esteem and encourages them to keep pushing forward even when reading feels hard. Be mindful of the language you use when you're offering support. Instead of pointing out mistakes, gently guide your child towards the correct answer. For example, if they misread a word, you might say, "Oh, that was so close. Let's try that word again together." Partnering with your child's school. Your child's school plays a crucial role in their reading development, and building a strong relationship with teachers and support staff can significantly benefit your child. Stay in regular communication with their teacher to ensure that you're aware of your child's progress and the support they are receiving in class. Building resilience and encouraging a growth mindset. One of the most valuable lessons you can teach your child is resilience. Reading may be challenging, but it doesn't define their future success. Encourage a growth mindset by helping your child see that effort leads to improvement and that struggling with reading doesn't mean that they are failing, it's just part of the learning process. Remind your child that everyone has strengths and challenges and that struggling with reading doesn't make them any less capable than anyone else. Above all, remember that your child's journey with reading is unique. Celebrate their progress no matter how small, and always approach challenges with kindness and understanding. With your support and encouragement, your child can build the skills and confidence they need to overcome the obstacles and discover the joy of reading. Games we use to support reading. Here are three of my favourite games. The first one's the Dotty board game, as this is one I've used a lot over the past 12 years. And if you'd like a copy of the board, please do drop me a line and I'll happily send you a copy over to use yourself. The email address is info@clarajamestutoring.co.uk. And around the board, you have 18 dots or images, say 6 red, 6 blue, 6 yellow, just as an example. And we each choose a colour. You can be red and I'll be yellow. You can move any direction around the board, but you cannot change direction halfway through your go. So player one rolls the dice and the number on it determines how far you can move. If it lands on a red, you'll need to read a sentence, paragraph, page, whatever's relevant, depending on what you agree to be appropriate. If anyone lands on a yellow, I'll have to read a sentence, paragraph, page, etc., depending on, again, what you've agreed is appropriate. If you land on a blue, that will lead you to have to roll the dice again. And what you roll this time will determine the forfeit. So you might be, number 1 is have another go. Number 2, move forward 6 spaces. Number 3, move back 3 spaces. Number 4, miss a go. It means you don't get to roll, but you do still get to read. Number 5, the other person reads. And number 6 is you have to read again. My idea when I came up with this was to take the onus off one person having to put in all the effort, as I mentioned earlier. I used to hate reading out. In my head, it was no problem. But as soon as I started reading out loud, I became a bumbling buffoon. And I also felt that if you never knew when your turn was coming up, it meant you had less of an opportunity to sit there in dread because you would also become too caught up in the game. Another game we play is silly sentences. And what you do is you start with a dozen sentences, such as the young black dog played, or the lazy brown cat slept, the wise white owl read, the fast orange fish swam, etc. You can make them as long or as short as you like, but they all need to have the same structure. Now, what you do is you cut up each of the sentences and put the words into corresponding piles. So I put all the thes in this pile, the first adjective in this pile, adjectives being a describing word. Now take the next adjective and put it in this pile, etc., etc. So then what you do is you take one word from each pile and you put them together to form a new sentence. And very often the sentence will make no sense, but that makes it more humorous to read. You can write them down to practice handwriting or to remind yourself how funny they were if you want to. But it's fun and the aim is not to take it too seriously. And then something else we do is sometimes I'll often ask children that enjoy drawing at the end of the chapter to draw a storyboard of the events that have taken place or to draw an annotated character that we've been introduced to. This way we can determine that they have understood it, but in a more informal way. We sometimes deviate from this and we'll create word searches, for example, using keywords or ideas or characters from the section as well. So where can you find more help? I could talk about this all day and give you more ideas of games that you could play. If you'd like more fun, practical ways to help your child with reading, I send out a weekly email on a Monday to the parents of primary school children and Thursdays to the parents of secondary school children, with hints on supporting various aspects of maths, English, or revision. But if you're looking for something a bit more constructive, you might find the Clara James approach helpful. It's our membership group where you'll find a range of resources you can use to support your child at home. Each month, a new bundle is uploaded, and in addition, you'll also have access to the Facebook group where you can gain ideas and advice from both myself and others in the group. And there's also a monthly Zoom call where you can ask questions to me directly. If you're interested in this and you'd like more information, there is the link below. I hope you found this helpful.